Hi everyone, it's Dr. Lepore, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about your career path. So, interviews. Interviews can be so stressful. You probably could fill in the blank after so with a lot of different words, but stressful is probably going to be the biggest one. And interviews, whether you're talking to somebody else about their career or someone's talking to you about yours, put you on the spot and ask you to think in new and novel ways. Okay? So you cannot control what somebody's going to ask of you in an interview. You can prepare. You can look at the most commonly asked questions. You can look at the kind of answers other people have given. But, until you're in the moment, you're not going to really know what they're going to ask. But you can control what you want to say. And you do this by really knowing the story you want to tell them. Okay? So before you're going to start with an interview, let's talk about a job interview for a moment. You really need to answer these questions for yourself. Can you do the job? This is probably the biggest and most difficult one to answer. This means knowing the company, knowing the job requirements, knowing your own personal skills and challenges, and the places where you're still working on it. Again, it's okay to go for a job that's out of your range. If you've got 70% of the skills, you can try for the job because you never really know what's in their head. But you know what? Even when you have 100% of their skills, you still have to do some soul searching on whether or not you can do the job. Is the environment going to work for you? Is the nature of the work going to work for you? Are you trained? What do you need to learn so that you have a really good sense going into the interview? The next one is, do you want this job? Do you really want the job? Do you want to work right now? Are you ready to work right now? Does it fit in your lifestyle as a student? You really want to sit down and think about this because going into it, you're not going to have any control over scheduling and ideas and workload. So you need to know that you're ready for a job. Okay? Then it goes to, do you want this specific job? The job that you're looking for, is this what you are looking for? Because if you don't want the job and you're just applying because you need a job or because you feel like you should have a job, it's going to show up in the interview no matter how skilled and accomplished you are and how good a fit it is. Okay? Okay? Do we want to work with you? Well, this is the employer. So these 4 questions can be you asking about it, but it could also be the employer asking these questions in very subtle ways. They're going to be looking at you to see, can you do this job? Do we have any evidence that you can? Do you want this job? Do you want to work with us? Do you want this specific job? Is this where you want to work? Is this the kind of work you really want to do? And finally, an employer is going to ask you, do we want to work with you? Are you a person we want as a coworker? Okay? At the end, you're going to sit there and you're going to have to say, do I want to work with this employer? Because I know people who've been offered jobs that on paper look wonderful for them, but it's turned out not to be a fit for moral, experiential, life type of issues. So before you go into an interview situation, you have to know your non-negotiables. Those non-negotiables are the things that are the deal killers. Those are the things that, you know that if you get offered the job, it's not going to work out for you. And some of those things are going to come down to your core values. If you're asked to do things against your core values, you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be successful. They're not going to be happy with you. It's just not going to be a fit. So you need to know what these non-negotiable things are. I want you to start to think of an interview as a chance to learn about the company, department, and team you could be working with. Okay? But keep your eye on this, mindset of non-negotiables. If they're asking you to work overnights and you know that you have, for instance, childcare responsibilities, it becomes a non-negotiable because it's going to be impossible for you to make it work. Okay, but again, going back to core values and the core aspects of your identity, well, those are really big deals. Okay? So I just want you to take a moment and look at this picture, and I want you to kind of ground yourself. Okay? These are big decisions we're making. This is a big plan that we're putting together. It's not going to have immediate results. Right? We're planning for the long term, not the short term. And in the short term, yes, we want to get our resumes done. We want cover letters done. We want, to have everything ready for our job, search. But we also want to start thinking about the fact that it's a very big world out there. There's a lot that we can do. There's a lot of places to go, even in the midst of the pandemic. Okay? So having a good, clear sense of the future helps. Think of it as mapping it out, not saying exactly how you're going to do it. Okay? So now when you get into an interview situation, they're going to be asking you for questions, questions about yourself. Some of the do's and don'ts. You get the question, tell me about yourself, you want to keep your answer to 90 seconds or less. You want to stick to your professional attributes, and you want not to include personal information. In 90 seconds, you can't tell a hiring manager your life story. And frankly, they're not really looking for it. So tell me about yourself is one of the most common questions, and you want to go ahead and practice this over and over again. Things you absolutely do not want to tell them are your age. Okay? You don't need to tell them your age. You don't need to tell them about your family life. You don't need to tell them about what you do for fun. Okay? You might want to put in there, you are a full-time student at Rutgers, or you're just about to graduate, or you're a team player, or, you've had a lot of experience dealing with problems and problem solving. But you really want to create kind of an elevator pitch to answer this question in like 90 seconds. Anticipate that in some way they're going to ask you to tell them why you're a good fit for the role. Right? So this one comes in lots of different tones. Right? They're very seldom is a hiring manager going to ask you what makes you a good fit for this role. What they want to do in this sense is kind of get to know you and the skills and strengths you're bringing with you. So some of the do's for this, talk about your skills, the ones that were in the job ad. Before you walk into this interview or Zoom into this interview, make sure you look at the skills that they were looking for. Talk about your strengths, okay, the things that you do well, and give, specific pinpointed information that back up what they're looking for you or are relevant to the company and role. On the other hand, don't just talk about yourself as being great or qualified, okay? They want evidence. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing to consider right now is that employers want evidence that you've done these things, that you are capable of using these skills for them. Do not be generic. So generic is, oh, I'm a good team player. If you're going to talk about being a good team player, because that was in the ad, you want to give examples of how. And not everybody has to be a leader. In fact, a lot of times we're not going to be the leader. So it's okay, to not say I was the leader in this or I solved the problem. But you can talk about my team. We did this. We accomplished. Because that shows off another facet of who you are. Okay? Don't be shy. I'm not saying go in there and brag. But be aware that nobody is going to brag for you. They will only know what you share. So if you keep things back or you don't think you want to share them because, oh, I don't want to sound, cocky or arrogant or egotistical, you might want to kind of control that in this environment and make sure you take credit for things that you have earned and for the work that you've done. They're going to ask you what strengths you're going to bring to the company. Okay? And again, these are not going to be written out this way. You're going to have to decode the question. So when they ask you about strengths, you want to give tangible strengths in your PAR and STAR statements. So remember, the PAR and STAR statement is like a bullet point. It starts with a verb, right? It gives some detail, and it gives a result, right? And so this is something you might want to work on, and I suggest that you take a look in the career book and read over this again. Discuss the action that proves a strength. So you don't just say, I managed. You want to describe who you managed, the environment you managed in, okay? And tie it to the strength that you're trying to demonstrate. Again, don't be shy, which is take responsibility, take credit for work where you deserve it. And don't be obnoxious. Don't be over the top. Don't embellish or lie. people are going to pick up on that. So you want to be accurate, you want to be honest, you don't want to be too shy about it, but you also don't want to be like so in their face that they're going to dislike you. Because one of the things that they're looking at in an interview situation is, do they like you? And do they want to work with you? They may ask you to name a weakness that you have. So you might need to do some soul searching, because we all have a list of weaknesses we have, but we're never really sure which ones we should share. So you definitely want to give a true and honest weakness. Make sure that that weakness is not a deal breaker. It should not be a core skill in the job ad that you answered, but it could be linked to some of those skills. Okay? Make sure that you discuss it, in how you're working to overcome it. So maybe the job says you have to have good communication skills, but it's not a job or a role that includes public speaking, and maybe public speaking makes you nervous. Okay? Maybe it's something where you have a really hard time. So you want to talk about it and talk about what you're doing to overcome it. But please do not say that you have no weakness. Do not give humble brags. Do not dodge questions. Do not say that you're a perfectionist. Notice it's spelled wrong, just to remind you that. And do not choose an old weakness, one that you should have already worked out. Okay? You may be asked to do behavioral-based or scenario questions. Those are ones where they say, well, we would like you to imagine you're in this situation. How would you handle it? Well, use your STAR statements. Be specific. Be honest. Think outside of the box if you can. Okay? It's totally fine to say you'd ask for help, but please never avoid the question, and do not lie or try to answer it the way you think they want to hear it, because frankly, you don't know what's in their head. They want to get they want to know about you and how you'd handle it, because again, they're trying to gauge, are you going to be a good member of their team? They'll ask you why you want this job. Give them specific reasons to why you chose them. Okay? And you should answer about them, not you. Okay? So why did you like this company? Why do you like this role? Push it back on talking about what is about them is wonderful. Do discuss your skills that relate to your job description. Do not ever say it's for the money, although we all know that that's a reality. Do not give benefits that only benefit yourself. Give reasons that only benefit yourself. For instance, don't say, well, I think I'd learn a lot here. Probably not good. And do not say that you're qualified. You should have spent the whole interview showing them that. Do you have any questions for me? Well, you should have 2 to 3 questions before you go in. Okay? Make sure that you know what they are, and make sure that they're specific. Okay? Make sure they're not ones you can answer online. Things to avoid when you're asked if you have any questions: don't say no. Don't ask generic questions that show no interest in the organization. Please do not ask about benefits, salary, or schedule either, because you want to use this to kind of understand them better and to show your interest, as opposed to showing that you really didn't do your homework or that you're only there for the money. Tips on negotiating. Well, if you get offered, you can start thinking about the non-negotiables. Know your value. Make sure you're saying thank you. You can always ask for time. And one thing, please don't accept a job and then ghost them a week later, okay? Because this can come back to haunt you, and it's just bad practice. All right, so this is just to get you started again, thinking about how you're going to go about handling an interview. So you definitely want to do mock interviews. You want to practice, and you want to make sure that you're ready, right? Because it is nerve-wracking, especially now when we're using online systems to do this, and you're not getting as much feedback as you would in the real world. You want to make sure that you go in as prepared and comfortable as possible, because it will show up on camera. In fact, a recent interview I did, they recorded it. So you might want to practice, record, and watch. As painful or uncomfortable as that could be, it's going to help you get ready. And in the end, it's going to help you find and land the job that you want, that brings you to the future that you're trying to create.